The film opens with Aatami Korpi and his dog crossing into the Soviet side of the border using his travel documents. He returns to the site of his old home where he once lived with his wife and two sons. Inside the ruined house, he finds photographs of his family. The images stir memories that leave him standing in silence for a long moment. In a Siberian prison, a Soviet Red Army commander named Yegor is released from his cell. KGB officer explains that Yegor once led his troops into Finland. On their way back, his unit burned down several villages. During one of these attacks, Yegor massacred a family, a mother and her two young sons, and even mutilated their bodies with a shovel. He never realized that the family he murdered belonged to Aatami, a Finnish soldier, rumored to have killed hundreds of men alone and whose name had become a legend. Now that Aatami has returned to the region, KGB officer orders Yegor to eliminate him. If he fails, Aatami will continue hunting them and spill even more blood. Yegor reluctantly accepts the mission. Meanwhile, Aatami is seen organizing the logs he found at the remains of his old home. He selects the ones still in good condition, uses a rope-pulling tool to move them, and loads them onto his truck. After gathering all usable wood, he burns the rotten leftovers and decides to begin rebuilding his home. Aatami begins his journey back home with all the recovered wood loaded onto his truck. As he drives, he occasionally glances at the photograph of his family tucked inside the cabin. Not long after, two officers stop his vehicle. Aatami notices another car pulling up behind them and immediately understands that this is not a routine inspection. One officer asks for his identification and hands it to the man in the jeep behind them, who turns out to be Yegor. Yegor looks at the logs in the back of Aatami's truck and says that based on the stories about him, Aatami must have truly loved his old home. The officers begin moving in. One of them pours alcohol into a bottle to prepare a Molotov cocktail, while another approaches from behind. Meanwhile, Yegor sends a large truck filled with soldiers to chase Aatami. When one of the soldiers in the truck with Aatami wakes up, Aatami sees that the man is armed but has not loaded his weapon. Aatami orders him to reload his ammunition. Aatami then takes the soldier's weapon while still speeding ahead with Yegor's convoy close behind. When they reach an open area, Aatami stops the truck and opens the door. The soldier tries to escape, but Yegor's men catch up and gun him down. While the guards focus on the fleeing man, Aatami slips out and retaliates, killing them one by one without hesitation. Once the squad is wiped out, Aatami aims his rifle at Dragunov, but ends up leaving him, not recognizing who he is. Dragunov is soon met by comrades on motorcycles and continue the pursuit. The motorcycle unit quickly closes in behind the truck. Aatami fires at them, but the bullets cannot penetrate their thick metal helmets. They return fire, and one of the shots hits Aatami, forcing his truck off the road and into the bushes. Despite his wound, he manages to steer back onto the main path. The riders continue to approach. One of them jumps onto the back of the truck. When he attacks, Aatami dodges, but the rider uses a hanging rope on the truck to swing forward for another attempt. Aatami makes a sudden maneuver, causing the man to lose his grip just as Yegor's vehicle arrives and runs him over. Another soldier aims his weapon at Aatami, but Aatami drives aggressively and causes a collision that kills the attacker instantly. Yet another rider climbs onto the top of the cabin and tries to pull Aatami out of the truck. Aatami fights back, throwing the man off balance until his body becomes tangled in a loose rope. Aatami then feeds the end of the rope into the engine, pulling the man violently until the tightening loop snaps his neck. This eliminates the last of the motorcycle eunuch. Feeling increasingly threatened, Yegor throws a Molotov cocktail onto the pile of wood in Aatami's truck. In retaliation, Aatami ties dynamite to the corpse still trapped on the truck and hurls the body toward Yegor's vehicle. The commander manages to leap clear just before the massive explosion destroys the car completely. Then, Aatami steers his truck into the forest and tries to extinguish the spreading fire. Growing desperate and enraged, Yegor calls for the deadliest air support available to finish Aatami once and for all. Aatami stops for a moment to check the condition of the logs he is transporting. Some have already burned, but many are still usable. He pours water into the truck's radiator, knowing the journey ahead is still long. He also feeds his loyal dog before resting. Suddenly, he sees aircraft flying low above him. Without hesitation, he lifts his dog into the truck and speeds off before the two planes can circle back for another strike. Aatami pushes the truck as fast as he can, but one of the enemy aircraft dives toward him and opens fire. He swerves sharply and spots a small house with a garage nearby. Without a second thought, he drives straight into the garage to shield himself from the attack, knowing it will not protect him for long. In front of the garage lies a dense forest. Aatami notices a large wooden board and quickly places it over the truck bed. Meanwhile, the enemy pilot makes a sharp turn and fires a missile that obliterates the garage in an instant. But Aatami has already driven out moments before the explosion. The planes continue shooting at him, but the wooden board absorbs most of the impact. Then, Aatami charges into the forest. The thick trees make it difficult for the pilots to track him, and seeing an opportunity, he accelerates further. One pilot eventually lowers altitude enough to find Aatami again. The aircraft tilts to line up another attack, but Aatami suddenly halts the truck. When he no longer hears the aircraft behind him, he continues onward until he exits the dense tree line. He steps out briefly to check the area and makes sure the second plane is nowhere nearby. As he resumes his journey across the edge of an open field, the remaining aircraft finally locates him and dives in for another assault. It flies extremely low and fires again, but the pilot has run out of ammunition. Enraged, he decides to crash the plane directly into Aatami's path. He secures his harness, then leaps from the cockpit with a parachute. Seeing this, Aatami releases the rope securing the logs. He stops the truck and lets the entire load spill across the road. The jet slams into the rolling logs, loses control, and explodes violently. The pilot drifts down with his parachute. Aatami begins gathering his logs again, but the pilot lands and opens fire on him. Fed up with the entire ordeal, Aatami walks toward him. The pilot laughs and looks past Aatami. When Aatami turns, he sees a massive bomber approaching. Quickly, Aatami reloads all the logs onto the truck, closes the bed, and drives at full speed. The pilot is confident that this time Aatami will not survive, but the bomber drops a payload that not only targets the truck, but also nearly kills the pilot as well. Aatami steers away from the chain of blasts and drives straight into the water. The truck sinks, but Aatami gets himself, his dog, and the wood out safely. Near dusk, Yegor arrives at the site by boat. He asks what lies beneath the water. His men report that Aatami's truck is sunk, but there is no sign of a body. They realize Aatami has escaped once again. Meanwhile, later that night, Aatami builds a raft from his logs and crosses the water with his dog until he reaches the shore. Once he sets foot on land, he spots an old tank not far from the coastline.
Not far from the coast lies the Soviet-Finland border. Yegor arrives first and waits for Aatami, knowing there is only one route he must take. Before long, Yegor hears the distant rumble that signals Aatami's arrival. He prepares to finish him. Aatami emerges, driving the old tank he discovered and carrying the logs tied across its top. The moment Yegor's men see Aatami in an armored vehicle, they ready their weapons. Aatami takes his place in the driver's seat, activates the cannon, and pushes the tank forward. The enemy troops open fire, but Aatami ignites the trail of gasoline he laid behind the tank. With full speed, he charges ahead. He has also planted explosives as part of his plan. When the bombs detonate, the blast is powerful enough to propel the tank over the border, causing it to crash down on the Finnish side. Before Aatami can continue, the tank's tracks break, trapping him inside. Yegor is delighted to see this. Exhausted and bleeding heavily, Aatami tries to endure. He removes his knife, separates the blade from its wooden handle, and makes sure his dog escapes through the damaged hatch. The dog manages to cross the border safely into Finland. Aatami crawls out, but Yegor captures him. Before Yegor can kill him, KGB forces arrive with their unit. They insist that Aatami must be kept alive. Yegor drags Atami's body and hands him over to the KGB. Night falls, and Aatami is loaded onto a train bound for Russia, his blood dripping across the floor of the cargo car. Dragunov enters and tells Aatami that he is the one who murdered his family. He explains that the only face he remembers clearly was that of Atami's eldest son, who stood in front of his mother and baby brother to shield them. Dragunov boasts about how he chopped them into pieces and fed their remains to stray dogs. He then tells Aatami that he is nothing but an abomination and not any sort of legendary warrior. After Dragunov leaves, something ignites inside Aatami again. He breaks free from his bindings. He pulls a knife from inside his leg, hidden there since before his capture. When one guard enters, he cuts him down instantly. The other guard jumps from the moving train to escape, only to be killed by a tree moments later. Aatami slicks his hair back with his own blood and prepares for... Elsewhere, Yegor is forced to sit through a formal dinner with KGB officer and the generals, a moment he despises. He demands his payment so he can leave, but KGB officer insists he enjoy the banquet first. They drink heavily, which only makes Yegor more restless and frustrated. At the same time, Aatami crawls into another train car where his logs have also been loaded. He moves silently and spots a soldier sleeping. When another soldier wakes up, Aatami slips into the next car. A guard who steps outside to relieve himself notices him, but before he can shout, Aatami throws his axe and kills him without a sound. Soon after, another soldier spots Aatami. Without hesitation, Aatami stabs him and finishes him instantly. Most of the soldiers are still asleep. Aatami crawls forward slowly, but one soldier drops a bottle, the loud crash stirring confusion. Aatami bucks under a storage shelf to hide, but shards from the broken bottle cut into his skin as he crawls. His hand even becomes caught in a mousetrap. The unusual noises cause even more soldiers to wake up. Seeing chaos spreading, Aatami grabs his axe and advances again, and checks the next car. Many officers are still awake there, so he climbs onto the roof of the train and moves quickly toward the front. Misfortune strikes when a metal pipe slams into him, knocking him straight into a compartment filled with officers. The soldiers rush him immediately, but Aatami uses the momentum from his fall to beat them down one by one. He seizes a machine gun and sprays the guards with unstoppable force. The bursts of gunfire echo throughout the train, even reaching the dining car where Yegor sits. Yegor instantly realizes who is responsible. After clearing the entire car, Aatami steps out, ready to face Yegor. Yegor simply salutes him and runs away. Aatami notices an object covered by a sheet. When he lifts it, he finds a missile beneath it. Meanwhile, Yegor storms back into KGB officer room. The moment he enters, he stabs an officer, grabs a pistol, and slaughters everyone inside. When he is about to shoot KGB officer, the officer reveals the money Yegor has been demanding. Yegor smiles and says, "Here is your reward," before shooting KGB officer to death. He drinks calmly afterward. Soldiers break down the doors, but they find the train stopped and Aatami gone, riding away as fast as he can while carrying the missile. Yegor pockets the money and feels satisfied, but suddenly the room shakes violently. A missile streaks toward him from the distance. Yegor realizes what has happened. Aatami appears, riding the missile. As it reaches the train, he leaps off and launches himself directly at Yegor, unleashing all the fury he has held inside. Yegor fights back, landing heavy blows. Aatami's wounded body begins to weaken, allowing Yegor to pin him down and seize the money. But Aatami rises again. The brutal fight continues. Yegor grabs him and nearly finishes him. In desperation, Aatami grabs a fork and stabs Yegor in the leg. Yegor turns it against him and tries to choke him, but Aatami manages to throw him off. Furious, Yegor picks up an iron rod and beats Aatami repeatedly until he is drenched in blood. He mocks him, saying, "If you came for revenge, I expected a bigger surprise," then pushes him out of the car. The missile is still attached to the train. Aatami realizes something. Yegor steps outside and asks if Aatami has any last words. Aatami spits out a screw, the piece that was holding the missile in place. Now free, the missile shoots forward directly into Yegor's path, but suddenly stops in midair. Aatami has already detached the shovel-like stabilizer at the back of the missile, meaning he has traveled far behind. Yegor survives the first blast and breathes a moment of relief, but only for a moment. The missile reactivates and rockets straight into his face. Aatami watches from a distance as the fire rises into the air. He knows that Yegor has met a brutal end, and it gives him a sense of closure after all he has suffered. 2 days later, at a station near the Finland border, several guards are resting when they hear approaching footsteps. Alert, they raise their weapons and check the source. What they see is Aatami walking toward them, carrying the same logs he fought so hard to save. They stop him and ask for identification. The moment they read the name on his card, the guards fall silent. They realize the man before them is Aatami, the legendary figure. Instantly, they salute him. A few days later, Aatami is seen building a new home near the border, accompanied by his loyal dog. With the wood he saved, he begins rebuilding his life. His condition slowly improves. While working, his dog begins barking loudly. Aatami prepares for danger, but instead a group of local villagers approaches. He assumes they have come with a complaint, but they gently say, "For work this big, you too will need help. We are here to lend a hand." The words strike deeply. It has been a long time since anyone offered kindness to him. The villagers notice the tears forming in his eyes and without another word begin helping him. Together they build his new home. Aatami weeps with gratitude, rediscovering a sense of humanity he thought was lost. In the closing credits, the villagers continue helping Aatami until the house stands complete and strong. And this is where the story ends.